Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Hustlers Kung Fu Live. Today we're going to talk about the Rayshard Brooks shooting and the looming police state that many people are all up in a tizzy about. I wanted to do this shortly after the shooting, but the wounds were too fresh and I really wanted to wait a minute and to get on it because I feel that if it hadn't we hadn't had the environment in which George Floyd was murdered, let's be 100% clear. George Floyd was murdered by the police. This created the environment for this shooting to be political. I believe this shooting was political. We're going to jump off into that and a lot more. So let me go ahead and bring on today's sponsor. Whoa. Here we go. All right, so today's sponsor of this live show is How to Make Money from Scratch to Set Up a Foundation. Tonight, there will be a live webinar talking about things you need to do to retrain yourself for the new economy. The link is below. All right. So one of the things I need to do is let people know that we got this going on. So hold on a second. We got a lot to talk about today. We got a lot to get off the chest. All right. So we got that done. We've got that. All right. So let's talk about Rayshard Brooks and the shooting. I don't know what you saw, but what I saw was Rayshard Brooks beating the brakes off these two cops. I saw that they were trying to arrest him and he was resisting arrest. I saw that he grabbed one of the cops' taser, took off, and when he was running, he fired the taser at the cop, and the cop pulled out his weapon and fired back. Now, normally this wouldn't have ended in the result of the cops being arrested. They would have been on administrative leave while this was investigated. And more than likely, if we were not in the environment of George Floyd, this man who got murdered by the cops, I don't think this whole case would have went down the way that it did because Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. He was fighting. He was giving them the business. And, I'm just sitting there like when I saw it, I was like, okay, now if let's say it all went down like that Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest, and let's say he did not grab the cop's taser and he was running and he did not fire back, more than likely he'd be alive. Or if he had just said, all right, arrest me, more than likely he'd be alive. And these are the things that are not talked about. I've been looking and I've been seeing them like, wait a minute. And I want everyone who is member of the chat, everyone who has had an encounter with the cops where you got a ticket or whatever and nothing bad happened to you. Because I am seeing this was predicated. I want you to understand all of this exists in the George Floyd environment. George Floyd was murdered by this cop. There ain't no doubt about that. We have no disagreement. George Floyd was murdered by this cop, and it created this environment of activism. It created this environment of protest. It created this environment of marches. And so when this Rayshard Brooks shooting happened, it happened in that environment where it was over scrutinized. And honestly, you know, Rayshard Brooks is not getting any responsibility for his actions. He's not getting responsibility for resisting arrest. He's not getting responsibility for fighting with the police. And he's not getting responsibility because, see, you know, I understand that, you know, Rayshard Brooks did a video talking about, like, when you go to prison and you come out and you try to get your life back together, you're treated like an animal, which is true. And part of that is you make a decision on how you're going to live your life. And one of the big issues that is happening right now is a lot of folks don't want to accept responsibility for making poor choices. You know, I'm not going to go over Rayshard Brooks' past because that really doesn't matter in the context of the conversation we're having today. I want you to look at what Rayshard Brooks did with those two cops. He got the best of two cops. I mean, they were fighting. They were duking it out. He got the best of them. He jumped up and grabbed one of them's taser. Let's just keep it right there. Let's just keep the conversation right there. So typically, now here's some background. I used to work in the emergency room, and I used to meet cops who had DUI people in the, you know, because essentially when someone comes to the hospital and they're DUI, there is a procedure where you have to draw their blood, and there's a chain of custody. So you have to draw their blood, put it in the bag, sign it, seal it, and give it to the cop. And the cop's got to hold on to it till he gets to the evidence locker. And I have seen so many people who were DUI, who were like drunk off their ass in one room. See this person in one of the lesser trauma rooms. And then in trauma 1, in trauma 2, in trauma 3, I would see the disaster of the people who were DUI, of the folks that they messed up because they chose to drive drunk. I've seen, I mean, one of the most heartbreaking stories was this pregnant mother who got hit by a DUI driver. She lost her baby. She lost her husband because someone chose to drive drunk. And I mean, it was just heartbreaking because, you know, she was in there. She was all busted up. I think she had a broken pelvis, broken legs, broken arm. And, you know, she's like, where's my husband? Where's my husband? And no one wanted to tell her husband was dead. And then at the same time, she was losing her baby. She lost 2 people that she loved because someone chose to drive drunk. And this is why I have the attitude about people who are DUI. Like, whatever happens to you is what happens to you, because I have seen the results of a person who chooses to drive drunk. I have seen the carnage. I have seen the death. I've seen the mutilation. I've seen that. So, you know, I have no sympathy for anyone that chooses to get behind the wheel drunk. None whatsoever. And essentially, if you got $10,000, you could beat a DUI charge. So I have no sympathy for Rayshard Brooks being DUI, driving under the influence. And also, let's go back to Rayshard's commentary of being treated like an animal. If you already know that you have 2 strikes against you, why would you do something stupid like driving while intoxicated? Why would you even do that? I know someone who went to jail and literally turned his life around, started a business, became a millionaire. He does not he don't drive and drink. He's got a family, he's got kids. On the weekend, you know where he is? He at home with his family. He's not out driving DUI. He went ahead and started a business and literally turned his life around. And I think that if you have made some mistakes in life and you, hey, like, look, I made some mistakes. I made some wrong choices. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to turn my life around. That option's open to you. But for you to continue to do dumb things like driving while intoxicated, smoking weed, doing dumb things, getting in confrontations with the police, miss me with that. You cannot continue to make bad choices and get the benefit of the doubt. And I guarantee you, if we were not in the environment with George Floyd, this would have went nowhere. And this is purely a political prosecution of these two cops who were trying to make a lawful arrest of someone who was intoxicated, who resisted arrest. And I know I'm going to lose a lot of people for saying that, but that's how I see it. The dude was resisting arrest. How many of you have been in a, like, I'm going to say something, and, you know, I'm probably going to get the coon label and all this other stuff because I don't support criminals. I don't support criminals. I'm not all about that. You know, I didn't choose thug life chose me. I'm not about that. And my 53 years on the planet, all of my encounters with the cops, 99% of them have been positive. Like I got stopped for speeding. You know what? Because I was speeding. That's why I got stopped for speeding. I remember one time, because see, I used to have the lead foot. I was a speeder. I like to go fast. I like to, and I remember one time I left Atlanta going up to DC in a Nissan Stanza, a 4-cylinder car, and literally from Atlanta to DC, I was doing 104 miles an hour. And this is back then when they had the police cars were Mustang 5.0s, and they were brown, and you did not know that this was a trooper's car until you got right up on it because they were Mustangs. And I was like, and it was a 5-speed. It's all the way in 5th gear. And I was like, going. And I passed this cop's car. I knew it because when I got up to it, and I don't know if he was asleep. He did not come after me because I did not slow down. I was like, I'm just going, right? And if he had stopped me, I would have been speeding. But he did not come after me. I don't know if God was with me that day or whatever, because I made it to DC in record time. I was like zooming. But I was going to see my friend Val and her husband. Didn't happen. But all of the times that I got stopped for the cops for speeding, I was speeding. Now, there was one time, like I said, all my encounters with the police were 99% positive. When I was in the military, First Sergeant Branch, he was like, hey, whenever you get stopped by the police, slide your military ID across your... And you know how many tickets that move got me out of? Because many cops are former military, and they will give you a break. Slide that ID across. All right, troop. Slow it down, troop. Slow it down. I got out of so many tickets because of that maneuver. And the 1% of the time where I was felt to be unfairly treated, I was when I had my store in DeKalb County. And every time I turned around, I was getting stopped. It was like, what is going on? And then I changed the registration of the van from my name to the company name, and it stopped. But did I ever get beat up? No. Did I ever get talked down to? No. Was I ever mistreated? No. Was I ever hauled outside my car? No. But also, I don't drink and drive. And there are many people who drink and drive, who do weed and stuff, and then they get stopped and they want to like, hey, I was treated unfairly because I was intoxicated on the public highways and they mistreated me. My thoughts are, if you are someone who you got 2 strikes against you, you need to live a pristine life. You need to be home with your kids, your wife. You need to be straight and narrow. You cannot be out here being rowdy. You can't be about that street life. And once again, we're not going to go into Rayshard Brooks' past, because one of the reasons he was resisting arrest is he had probation, and more than likely, if he got arrested, he was going back to jail. Kind of like the gentleman who got shot in the back in South Carolina for child support. The dude ran. He didn't, he was resisting arrest and the cop just shot him in the back. And that was bad because he should have just let the dude go. But he shot him in the back because the dude knew that if he got arrested, he was going to jail for back child support. And this brings up the case of personal responsibility. Like, I had a child support case. I went to court and fought that shit tooth and nail. I was just like, and I got it dismissed because I know what happens to men who have child support issues, delinquent child. I was like, I don't want any of that. I don't want you messing with my passport. I don't want you I went to court and fought that stuff because I knew what could potentially happen. And a lot of men just put their head down, don't show up to court, don't represent themselves. And next thing you know, they're in arrears and their credit's messed up. They lost their license. They lost their professional license. They're like, whoa. See, there's a certain level of personal responsibility. And Rayshard Brooks was not personally responsibility to be sober on a Saturday night behind the wheel of his car. Like I said, I'm not going to go down all of the charges because I looked up in this past. He's got some shady stuff that's going on. But just in a snapshot of what happened that night, the number one issue I have with Rayshard Brooks was he was vigorously resisting arrest. He was throwing those dudes. He was throwing them balls. He got the best of 2 cops and managed to grab a taser and run away. And I felt if he did not fire that taser at the cop, if he had just dropped the taser and got to running, I think he'd still be alive. But we're not having those kind of conversations because of this looming police state. And this is one of the craziest things because I've seen all types of posts, like they're talking about defunding the police departments. Okay. I've had 2 kind of bad encounters. Well, not personally, because the outcome for me was positive. But years ago, my ex-wife called the police on me and said I hit her when I didn't. And the cops came and they did their job. And the cop actually told my ex-wife, ma'am, I don't think he touched you. Because there was a blonde-headed cop and there was a dark-headed cop. And the blonde-headed cop was looking at my wife. He had the flashlight all up in her face, looking at her, because I've never touched this chick. I didn't even thump her. And she blatantly lied. And the other cop was walking around the perimeter and saw that none of the furniture was disturbed. And they quickly deduced that she was lying. The cop's like, man, I don't believe he touched you. And I was like, whoo, thank God. Because I didn't touch this chick. I didn't hit her. So these cops did not mistreat me. They looked at the scene. They looked at the evidence. They looked at the fact that at the time, I was diesel. I was benching like 450, I was squatting like 700. I was hard as a rock. I was just nothing but muscle. And they were looking at me and they were like, if he had hit her, she would have been messed up. So that was one interaction with cops who were doing their job. They did not mistreat me. They didn't handcuff me. They didn't do anything to me. Then there was a time where I called the police, similar results. The cops believe me both times. I'm a 6'1" black male. That has been my interaction with the cops. Like I said, 99% positive. I've not had these bad outcomes. I've not been abused. But once again, and I'm about to say something that's going to lose a bunch of people. How many of these cats were 100% innocent that got messed up by the cops? You once you go ahead and investigate, they've got warrants, they're on probation. Once again, and that is a factor into this conversation, because if you don't want to be abused by the cops, why are you doing stuff to make it easy for bad cops? And let's go ahead and talk about it. There are bad cops. There are racist cops. There are cops who will kill a black man if given the opportunity. But here's my position. Why give them the opportunity? George Floyd, who complied, he didn't resist arrest, he was murdered. And that literally upset America, as it should. But this Rayshard Brooks thing came under the cover of the George Floyd environment, and I think it just got out of hand, because I'm sitting there like, he was resisting arrest. And nowhere do you see in the news reports that's like, well, Rayshard Brooks was, you don't see this. All of the stories are about the cops, how they're getting convicted. But you don't see, not nowhere, except the attorney for the cop was like, well, Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. He's the only one that's saying this, because if this environment where people are, the feelings are still exposed, it's still raw over what happened to George Floyd. I mean, and now everything is being looked through the lens of George Floyd, even though it shouldn't be. Because, like, I guarantee you, if this had happened before George Floyd, this wouldn't have been nowhere the big deal that it has become. So right now, because of this, quote, looming police state, which is, like I said, I don't really think that so many people are like this whole defund. All right, see, if we go ahead and do this, this is what's going to happen. If we defund the police department, real criminals are going to have a field day. They can't call the police because the police ain't coming. Real criminals are going to go nuts because, here's something that's funny. I was almost an Atlanta police officer. At one time, I was going to go to the academy, and my ex-wife freaked out, and she's like, we ain't doing that. She's like, you ain't doing that. We ain't doing that, because I was going to become a cop. And I didn't do it, and I didn't sign up for it. But being a cop, and this is from my experience of working in the emergency room with cops, it's a hard job, because you're supposed to be beat up by the public and not really fight back. This is the expectation. Like I said, if Rayshard Brooks had just beat them up and started running away and then grabbed the taser, I don't think the cop would have shot him in the back. This is the situation. The guy got the taser. He's firing it at the cop. And I don't think the cops are going to be convicted once they go to court, because Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. And this is just a political prosecution. Keisha Lance Bottoms talking about murder. I don't know what this chick's talking about. He was in the act of being arrested, and he resisted arrest. Based upon the law, you give the right for a cop to beat you up and to shoot you if you resist arrest. That's on the law books. You can't be resisting arrest and go like, oh, you ain't supposed to do that to me. You violate my constitutional rights. No. It like because see, through the state, we embody the police officer, the peace officer, through the laws of the state, to be an active agent of the state. And when a lawful agent of the state is trying to arrest you, and you resist, you open up a whole can of worms. And Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. And people like, oh, they should have just carried him home and dropped him off. And all right, let's go ahead and talk about the bigger question. If Rayshard Brooks was white, all right, we have seen, like, go Google cops. You will see all kinds of white people resisting arrest and cops beating them up. And I don't think on cops they show shootings. I don't think they show shootings. I think these cops realize that there are cameras on them and they're on their best behavior. But I honestly don't believe that Rayshard Brooks would have been killed if he had complied. I don't think he would have been killed if he didn't grab the taser. And this is one of the things in the whole defund the police. Let's get rid of the police. Let's look at who hates police the most. Criminals, the lower social economic class. Because if you're poor and you live in a poor neighborhood, you're probably going to have some bad interactions with cops. Why? Because poor people steal more than rich people. And let's go ahead and have that conversation. Rich people steal differently than poor people. Poor people will be out here doing the looting, getting the 5-finger discount. Rich people will be doing white collar crime. They'd be doing credit card fraud. They'd be getting tens of thousands of dollars with minimum risk. They get arrested. They do 1 to 2 years prison tops. Whereas you, like these two fools who robbed a T-Mobile store. That's 10 to 15 years for using the gun to rob or commit a felony. They could have got more money with credit card fraud, less risk, and if got caught, way less time. Way less time. But once again, this whole looming police state, and the public wants, because once again, who is talking about defund the police? It's the poor people. It's the people who live in these neighborhoods. It's the people who have, or have affinity for thug life. They got that affinity for thug life on the corner. Because you know how people have this appreciation for the lower economic class lifestyle? Smoking bud, pulling a caper. And this whole because this whole defund the police stuff, I don't think it's going to happen because the people in power know what will happen if we got rid of all the police departments. And I do see where reform can happen because, like, the man who was laying on the ground with the autistic man who got shot by the police, that was crazy. And also, I know this is going to sound crazy. I think we need to pay the police officers more money to get better candidates, because typically what we're having are a bunch of hillbillies becoming cops because it's a steady job. It's not something where people are having to go through a higher standard of requirements. So that's part of the problem. Because I will admit there are problems with the police. We do have racist police officers. We do have police brutality. But is it enough to get rid of the police departments across the nation? I don't think so. As someone who's had 99% positive interactions in very tense situations with the cops, that's just me. It's some crazy. All right, so let me get up in these comments. Whoa, y'all going in. Well, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. What's up? Yep, Jerome, I'm going to work on that. Matter of fact, you didn't resist arrest when you're in the wrong. Mr. Orlando, he was resisting, but you know what? I dealt with a drunk person. It's the most. I I remember one night in the emergency room, there was this little chick. She was about 5 foot nothing. She was blonde. She was drunk off her ass. She was in there singing nursery rhymes and cussing anyone that came in the room. You know, A, B, C, D. Oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Drunk people. Erica Williams, a lot of the cops I knew would have had him in handcuffs within 10 minutes. They gave him too much time. I felt that, this is where they made an error. They should have put him in the cuffs first 10 minutes, put him in a cop car, and went about their business. The pop bubble. It's a message many black men don't want to hear, but those who are in the wrong need to quit resisting arrest. It's a losing battle, even with the perfectly good cop. Pretty much, pop battle. Pretty much. Erica, when you are behind the wheel of a car drunk, whether the car is moving or not, under law in every state, that is DUI because you got the car to wherever it was while you were drunk. You cannot be behind the wheel. If he had been in the building sleeping, okay, but he was in the car because he was drunk. The pop drunk people unpredictable. We call this one a panic attack. Gunja, I had an encounter with a cop over mistaken identity, but I learned not to give off any aggressive signs. Then he realized I'm not the person he was looking for 5 minutes later. Good Lord. Leah D, I had good run-ins with the cops. I'm a black woman. Honey Bunny, hey, because see, when the cop pulls you over, once you start getting aggressive or mouthy, you can escalate that situation because at that moment, the cop has the power of the state. The cop is the trial, the judge, and the jury. And if you do something crazy, hey, God is no, you cannot be behind the wheel of a car, whether it's parked or not. That's DUI. Because you got to wherever you got to behind the wheel. Spiffer, he passed out in the drive-through lane, engine running. His car didn't teleport there. He was, in fact, drunk driving. Thank you. Like, I have no sympathy for anyone that wants to drink alcohol and get behind the wheel of a car. I have seen people die at the results of drunk driving. I have actually, literally, there was this one guy, he was drunk off his ass. He was about 50 some years old. He was funny as hell. And literally, he had someone in trauma one, trauma two, trauma three, trauma four, because he had hit these people. James saying I believe cops were. Well, okay, you trying to arrest somebody and they fighting back. Yeah, I think you could get a little salty because it's like, okay, sir, you're drunk. We need to arrest you, and you fight back. Turf, alcohol's most dangerous subject. Those high speed car crashes. One of the things, a lot of states have put laws where they can't chase people because innocent folks can die. Easy. We as blacks want equal treatment under the law. White folks get you. Actually, more white folks are shot by the cops than black folks, but you can't tell nobody that. And I want you to ask yourself, how come we don't see the publicized killings of white people the way that we do from black people? And I want you to ask yourself, we have literally three people who own most of the media, and why they're showing you all of these black killings, but none of them, they're not showing you any of the white killings. They're not showing you any of them. In Texas, a white mother was shot by the cops. Let me see if I can find that. See, this is funny. I went ahead and put in the Google machine, white mother shot by the cop in Texas, and all it's bringing up is this shooting of Atiana Jefferson, a black woman. And I'm on page 10 in the Google machine. Why should this be so hard to find? Why is it so hard to find this stuff? When you get down to it, Pamela Turner was shot around 10:40 p.m. Monday in an apartment complex in the Houston community. You know, these shootings make the local news, but they never get to the national news desk. Ask yourself, why is it that these local shootings of white people only make the national news the local news, but they never jump to the national news. And understand there's a select few media company owners, and why? Because like, I mean, this whole thing of white mother shot by the cops in Texas. I had to get to page 10. And like, look, here's the query: white mother shot by cops in Texas. Woman wanted after Atlanta went and Wendy. What does this? See, this is one of my big issues with Google. Let me see. Ah, we're still on the same thing. All right, so this brings up once again. Oh, here's one. White woman 25 is shot dead by cop during traffic stop after verbally abusing the officer and threatening to shoot him. See, you see how hard you have to search for this? Why is it that white people killed by the cops, these stories are buried? Why are these stories buried? You got to ask yourself, why do they bury these stories? Because if you will look, you will find them. You will find them. Pretty much, Jane Salmon. He should have chilled. Wow, honey bunny, I didn't know that. Erica, I think the Atlanta DA did it so this. Well, yeah, it's 100% political, because when you look at the facts, Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. Lewis 1122. I actually said that bad cops resist. See, this is one of the reasons that I've waited to do this show, is that people are so sensitive, because if you did not look at that tape and see that Rayshard Brooks was a resisting arrest and you thought that he should have been able to beat the cops, take a taser and do all that stuff and nothing should have happened to him, you are one of the problems. When you resist arrest, you open up a whole nother can of worms that the cops can do to you. Jigga Jinx, there's a lot of cases. Lewis, are you saying that cops don't create crime? I'm saying that there are more criminals than cops. That's what I'm saying. You sound like you just want this to be the wild, wild west where people could do whatever the hell they want to and nothing happens to them. Behavior. Dallin Roof murdered several church members and the police gave him a drink of water and took him to Burger King when they showed up. Explain that. Behavior Solutions TV. That was unconscionable. I don't know why they did that. I don't know. And also, did Dylan Roof resist arrest? I don't think so. Because if he had resisted arrest, they probably would have shot him. Explain that. See, this is one of the things that I understand, and this is why I showed you how many white people are killed by the cops. And go ahead and do your own research, and it's going to be hard because you would think, because you're going to find it at the local level. You're not going to find it at the national level. And in this environment of the George Floyd, you would think that never happens, but it happens frequently. White women are killed by the cops all the time, but this never hits the national news desk. And just ask yourself why. And with the Dylan Roof thing, I think Dylan Roof did not resist arrest. And this is one of the things. It's like, we'll take this incident of Dylan Roof, which is crazy that they took this dude to Burger King. I don't know why they did that. Did they catch him in the act? Did he resist arrest? See, this is one of the things. A Dylan Roof, who was a murderer, had enough sense not to resist arrest. So Rayshard Brooks was vigorously resisting arrest. So you think that did you see Dylan Roof? Did he resist arrest? I don't think so. Corey Bradley, the cop did not shoot him in the back. The cop shot him when Rayshard Brooks reached back and shot him with a taser. That's not in the back, dude. Spifford, the cop, shot him within a half second after Rayshard fired the taser at them. It was basically pretty much. See, this is one of the things. I understand that many black people have been conditioned to want things like, the way that I see it, if it wasn't for the environment of George Floyd, these cops would have never been arrested or convicted. They would have been placed on administrative leave while they investigated it, and they would have found out that Rayshard Brooks was a resisting arrest. I mean, he wasn't like just twitching in the cuffs. He was vigorously fighting. He was vigorously fighting. And I believe this political prosecution, this political arrest, this is why the cops here in Atlanta are calling in, because it's like, wait a minute. Dude was resisting arrest. Dude took a taser off of the cop and fired it at the cop, and the cop shot back. See, he pointed a weapon at him and the fire. You may not like it, but the shooting was an option for them, pretty much. Goddess Noel, I think that was the South Carolina guy who owed child support. Lewis, 1122, you so weak. You don't even want to see the truth. You're so contaminated with the Rona. You don't even want to see the truth. Basically, let's go ahead and do this. Oh, look at this. Let's look at this. To answer your question, Rayshard Brooks, 27, was shot and killed by Atlanta police after taking the officer's taser on Friday night. Part of the legal decision is based on the nature of the weapon. The taser is designed to be less lethal than the firearm, but it can be fatal in some circumstances. So yeah, a taser is a lethal weapon. Yep, it is. I mean, come on, dude. You're sitting here trying to go ahead and make something that wasn't. Yeah, so yeah, Lewis, 122, a taser is a lethal weapon. Corey Bradley, that's not true. All right. Here's the thing, and you guys have got to understand the law. When a peace officer tries to arrest you and you vigorously resist arrest, one of the options for the cop is to shoot you under the law. Resisting arrest does not equal death. Yes, he was wrong for driving drunk, yet he was wrong for resisting arrest, but you can honestly sit there and say the police killing him was the right thing. Ellie, how did he resist arrest? He was fighting. He was a combatant. He went to war with the cops. All right, so let me go ahead and show you what's on the law books. See, a lot of folks don't understand the law. All right. When can a policeman use his gun? A police car receives a radio message that a robbery has been committed at a certain address and 3 men who fled in a bright green Ford. One common type of situation where an officer may face an officer where a person resists arrest. Under the present law, it's important that the officer know whether the arrest was committed, a misdemeanor or a felony. When the officer seeks to arrest he is prohibited in most states from using deadly force. The reason for this limitation offers the fact that a misdemeanor is a minor crime and resistance, which does not threaten the police officer with death or serious bodily harm, is not sufficient to warrant the taking of the miscreant's life. There are a few states, however, the courts have upheld the officer's rights to use deadly force in making the arrest of resisting misdetermined. The reason behind this decisions is that the duty of the officer to be the aggressor, and hence he must put forth sufficient force to make the arrest. However, since the great majority of states have forbidden the use of deadly force in making the arrest of a misdemeanor, the officer would be best advised not to use his gun in such a situation unless the certain of the state in which one is authorized. All right. So in most cases, if you committed a misdemeanor, and let's go ahead, is DUI a felony in Georgia? In Georgia, driving under influence charges are generally misdemeanor offenses, but in certain circumstances, DUIs can be charged as a felony offense. Facing criminal charges can be especially troubling because a conviction can follow you around for your life. So one of the issues here is, how did he resist arrest? He was fighting. He did not twitch his arms. He was fighting. So this whole thing is, see, this is the part what got him killed, when he took that taser and fired it at the cop. See, at that point, he was an armed combatant. And I guarantee you, when these cops go to court, they're not going to be convicted. I guarantee you they're not going to get convicted when they pull out the evidence that, because see, in court, it's like, all right, they're going to be able, because there's court and there's the court of public opinion. And the only reason these cops got arrested and pushed was because of the George Floyd incident. And when they go to court, they're not going to, I wouldn't be surprised if they delay this for a while or they keep it for a while, because these cops are not going to be convicted. They're not going to be convicted because if you look at the actions of Rayshard Brooks, he was resisting arrest. He was into physical combat with the cops, got the best of the cops, took a taser and fired the taser at the cop. See, when you look at it that way, like if Rayshard Brooks had just not taken the taser and took off running, and I don't think they would have shot him in the back. And that would have been murder. But he was an active combatant in resisting arrest. So all of you folks who like, yo, you know, he was supposed to wild out. He was supposed to do all this stuff. They wasn't supposed to kill him. You don't understand the law. And when you resist arrest, you open up a whole can of worms for cops. Good Lord, Turf. Angela, on top of all this, everyone needs to learn real law regardless, because the color of law thing is ridiculous. I know. Easy. Once again, listen to what I'm saying. He wasn't running. He was actively engaged in war with the cops. When he grabbed that taser and when he fired it at the cops, that was an act of war. So it wasn't like he was just running away. Although I don't agree with his murder, but what do you expect when you assault, gain access to a weapon, and flee the police? I mean, pretty much. High most 7. Most instances with the police happen during the commission of a crime. These people minding their business usually don't have issues with the cops. Amen. Amen. Torrance J playlist. Once again, he wasn't just resisting arrest. He was fighting with the cops. He had gotten a weapon and he had fired it at the cop. Look at it from that context. It wasn't like he was just twitching. And also, there was this video where there was a white guy and a black guy, and the cops told him to sit on the floor. The white guy just sat on the floor. The black guy, he didn't sit on the floor, and he had all kind of attitude. Next thing you know, he got beat up. Gungy, I mean, look at what these cops deal with. Track music. George Floyd was an example of someone who didn't resist arrest, and look what happened. The country burned for 2 weeks. G. Combs, resisting arrest is not a look. I know y'all want to keep thinking about this from a simple terms, but let me walk you through what happened. They tried to arrest him. Rayshard Brooks put up a fight. Then, after putting up a fight, he took the taser from the cop. Then he ran away. Then he fired the taser at the cop. At this point, Rayshard Brooks was an armed combatant. He wasn't just running away, trying to flee the cops. He was engaged in warfare with the cops. And I don't know why y'all keep acting like it's like he was so simple. Like, I would go ahead and give you, like, the gentleman in South Carolina who was running from the cops and got shot in the back. That was murder. if Rayshard Brooks had just gotten away and ran away and they shot him in the back, okay, I would say that was murder. But that ain't what happened. Rayshard Brooks was putting up a fight. And I don't know why y'all keep like, oh, so yeah, he's supposed to beat up the cops. Yeah, he's supposed to be, yeah. He can. Look, good people don't do things like that. I know I'm going to have some issues with saying that, but good people just don't be doing crap like that. They don't be fighting with the cops. They don't be driving while drunk. And also, this is why the social or economic classes continue to have these issues. Lindy, this is why I went ahead and showed y'all the number of white people who get shot by the cops. And keep asking yourself, how come you don't see at the national level when a white person gets shot by the cops? How come? It doesn't fit the narrative. Hey, I'm already strapped. High most, keep in mind, as long as there's a criminal element wreaking havoc in certain communities, racial profiling will occur. It's just not an easy job. Cedric Kraft, resisting arrest. How do you resist arrest? Torrance playlist. I didn't get why Rayshard just didn't let them handcuff him. Because Rayshard had other issues, and if he went to jail, he was probably going to go to prison. The cops gave him 50 minutes to resist arrest. Terrence play Jeff. That's funny because Rayshard, he got the best of them. He got the best of both of them. Not here in Georgia, Erica. If you driving drunk, they gonna arrest you. I have seen little white women got arrested for DUI. I have seen old white men. Matter of fact, all of the DUI arrests at Northside Hospital were white people. They don't play that around here because, if you choose to drive drunk, you're literally putting other people's lives in your hands. So this whole call a wife and all this other stuff, that no. They gonna arrest you if you're driving DUI. I don't care what color you are. For all of those focused on resisting arrest, understand that resist being put in a squad car, which is resisting the possibility of death and sitting in jail and paying out tons of cash. Horace Young, did the cops make Rayshard Brooks get drunk? No, that was a choice that he made. It was a choice he made. So once again, it's like no one wants to put any responsibility on Rayshard Brooks. He chose to get drunk. He chose to get in this car. He chose to drive. But the cops the cops are so bad. Easy, it never would have been me. And also, Easy, I'm going to tell you something. A long time ago, black folks used to disavow the criminal element. Black folks used to be like Florida Evans on Good Times. We don't want no drug money. If you're a bad person, if you're doing bad things, we don't want nothing to do with you. So easy, it wouldn't have been me. I've been in intense situations with cops and I did not act a fool. I did not get into fights with cops. So this whole argument, what if it was you? It wouldn't have never been me. Never would have been me, bruh. Because I have common sense not to drink and drive. I have common sense not to get into fights with cops. Never would have been me. I mean, that's just a weak thing. It's like, well, what if it was you or your... No, it ain't me. So if Rayshard Brooks was a business owner, he wouldn't be having the time to sit with this drinking. Pretty much. Hilltops, logistics, goodbye. Because if y'all want to go ahead and condemn this thing based upon racism and for some reason that people supposed to be do ever, because the way that I saw it, Rayshard Brooks was resisting arrest. He seized a weapon. He fled. He fired this weapon at the cop. That's how I saw it. And if you don't see it that way, if you want to be up in this, all up in your feelings, and if you want to be like, oh, God, go ahead. Go ahead. Because I don't think these cops are going to be convicted once they get to a court of law and they start taking public opinion out of it. Alpha truck, I can't turn on. I can't lie. I turn on my white boy swag when I get pulled over. I'm not that prideful, huh? Timmy Celeste, white collar crime is the ticket, man. If you're gonna do crime, thank you, Mike Ed, for the $10 super chat. I think the problem most people are missing is the fact that it's not the cops in general aren't following law. It's that they usually use it in unethical ways. Could be. Nicholas, thanks for the $2 super chat. Dudes interact with cops with nothing but emotions, pretty much. So, I mean, this is one of the things right here that's going on. But that's all I got for you guys today. So, tonight at 7 p.m., we're going to have the live webinar. Links below. Check it out. And I will see you guys in the next one.